is E&P Reports, a vodcast from editor and publisher. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And this episode sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide understand the need to accelerate its growth now. Plus, traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way. IQ Audience Plus is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers media companies to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income now with IQ Audience Plus. Visit townnews.com EP today to learn more. And hi, once again, I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P. Quick housekeeping. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform like Stitcher, Deezer, Google, Apple, what have you, please follow us. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, the video version of E&P Reports, hit that subscribe button below me, bang the bell to the right. You'll get an update each and every time we update a new version of E&P Reports. Has anyone ever heard of a company called CherryRoad Media? Because I hadn't. I had never heard of this company. Out of the blue, it's becoming actually a force in small market media. So before I go any farther, let me bring in the CEO of CherryRoad Media and CherryRoad Technologies, Jeremy Gulban. Am I saying that correct, sir? And I want to also bring in a good friend of E&P, Sara April, Vice President and partner at Dirks, Essen April. Sara and Jeremy, join the group, please, and come on board. Jeremy, you're New Jersey based, correct, sir?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And you run a technology company, correct, sir?
Yes.
What the heck are you doing? You own 20, how many papers? No. How many small market community brands do you now own, sir?
This would be 27 in total.
There seems to be no rhyme or reason to your footprint. I mean, and you've picked up some amazingly cool titles. I've been to some of those markets, working with them, with some of those. What's going on with you? Who are you? What is CherryRoad? And why are you now the owner of 27 small market, really great brands all across the country?
Well, it's a great question, and one that I've been asked a lot over the last 10 months. And I've asked myself on some days as well. But overall, it's been a really great journey so far. Really, really exciting experience. And about, I guess it was last summer, we were kind of going through the whole pandemic here like everybody else and figuring out where we as a technology provider could make a difference to help with this horrible situation. And we just found that we really couldn't do anything, that, the big technology companies had so much reach, so much brand recognition that, even as we would try to make solutions that we were going to give away for free, nobody would even take our calls to talk about it. And so I got to thinking two things. Number one, are there other businesses that are suffering, or organizations that are suffering that we can help? Probably on. And that's what kind of led to, well, let's look at smaller markets. And then generally, last year was a rough year for the newspaper industry overall. We heard a lot of closures, a lot of downsizings. And so it seemed like an opportunity to bring our resources and our talent into the space and really use technology to help the business rather than compete against it, which I think is a big part of, what had been going on. So those two things kind of came together and we ran with it.
CherryRoad's roots are in complex, I'm reading this from your website, complex technical solutions and system integration services to large enterprise customers, particularly state and local government entities. Is that where you see the tie, that you're supporting local government entities with your technology, and you see the newspaper as a local resource in those same communities, sir?
I see some similarities in that the local government is an institution in the community, and so is the local newspaper. And we traditionally have supported the local government through technology and, and the community as a whole. And so I think the local newspaper is an interesting parallel to that. And we're used to working in a lot of communities all over the country. So to the seeming randomness of the locations, we're used to that. We're used to working anywhere. And I think as opportunities presented themselves, that's why we acted in those areas. But we also have a segment of the business that serves smaller businesses, local businesses, particularly around website hosting. And I think that's a real good tie-in to the newspaper.
All right, so you have digital services that you can bring to local advertisers, and these can become pipeline fillers for the fact that you can now bring those services to the local market through the newspaper.
Correct. Yep.
Now, Sara, you found Jeremy, or Jeremy found you through a market that I haven't been there. And Sara, 22 years traveling all over the world, helping generate revenue for this industry. I had never been to International Falls in Koochiching County, Minnesota. Do I have that right? Koochiching County, Sara?
You do.
Right, yep.
All right. And Sara, you helped broker the first sale. Was that the first one, Jeremy? Was that it? Or the first acquisition?
No, we weren't involved in that. Jeremy, your first acquisition, that was in Cook County, Minnesota, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
We weren't involved in that. We became familiar with each other through this most recent project with Gannett to acquire the large group of papers.
Okay.
It first came on our radar screen with that purchase of the Cook County paper in Minnesota. We included that in our roundup of deal activity after he had bought that in the fourth quarter of 2020. That's right, Jeremy, isn't it?
Correct. Yep.
I just found it fascinating because that's right. The International Falls, you started up something from scratch because the local paper had shut down. Is that correct, Jeremy?
That's correct. Yeah.
And have you ever been there? I'm curious.
I had not ever been there.
Because it's called the icebox of the nation. Did you know that? That's the monitor.
The largest thermometer in the country there in International Falls.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very proud of that.
They should be. I'm okay. Okay. So Jeremy, your first acquisition then was another Minnesota market, and that was Cook County News Herald in Grand Marais, Minnesota. Did I say that correctly, guys?
Grand Marais.
Okay. Now, why?
Well, that one was the first one that we discovered through a website that lists small businesses for sale. And really didn't know Sara, didn't know anybody in the business. So we just kind of got and jumped into it head first. And I like to say that the broker who was representing it was such a nice guy that I couldn't stop, talking to him and taking more calls about it. And so we moved forward with it, and turned out to be a nice little hidden gem. It's a great community. It's a very well-educated, high technology community for a rural area. And the paper is just a very good product. So we wound up luckily picking a good one to start with.
Sara, are we allowed to mention the nice guy? Was that John McGovern? Or you're not able to? Sara?
No, it was a local real estate agent.
Oh, the local real estate agent was representing.
Or business broker, yeah.
Wow. So now, so what? Okay, for a small community newspaper to join your company or for you to acquire it, what are you looking for? What is the footprint? What are you looking at?
Initially, we gravitated towards more tourist-focused economies like Grand Marais and like some of the properties in Arkansas, because there is an out-of-town element as well. So you get kind of two markets, if you will.
Yeah.
But then with this acquisition, we really moved beyond that into really any smaller market. And what we really liked here was that this was a nice collection of some small properties and some larger properties, and really had a strong sales force. And that was something that we were missing in the other property. So I think that was one of the things, and really a sense of process and procedure and structure that comes along with this.
Okay, you guys, Sara, you told me about the world's largest thermometer, right? I'm now going to quiz Jerry in one of the markets. I have been to two of the papers I own through Morris. Morris Communications was one of my original clients way back in 2001. They had picked up a number of papers in Kansas through a deal when they bought from Stouffer. You already know this. So Did you know that Dodge, can you name, Jeremy, how many cattle die a day in Dodge City, Kansas? Do you know the number? Because I do.
I do not.
5,800. Just thought you'd be interested to know. When you drive into Dodge City, you'll see a bunch of trucks full of cattle, and then you see in the opposite direction a bunch of trucks empty of cattle. It's a wonderful town, an amazingly vibrant community, very obviously a huge plant there. You're also in Newton, Kansas, a market I worked, where it's a very fertile market. So you're not really trying to build a footprint in a specific geographic area now. You're simply looking for good opportunities to pick up in a good market some really good titles. That's what you're into right now.
Correct. Yep.
Sara, is this new? Is this happening all over? This is why I brought you into the conversation, Sara. Our cover story for October, that's why I wanted this issue, is called Under New Local Management. And it's about this upspring of families and local entrepreneurs like Jeremy and people who are now desiring to pick up these community papers now. Sara, is this something that's starting to grow and happen?
It is, yeah. It's a trend that started, a good 18 months ago or so, where we started to see some local independent folks stepping up and buying these local papers, and it's really picked up steam in the last 12 months. So we've done a number of deals with Gannett this year where they've divested some of their small papers to local owners. Jeremy's deal was the largest. It included the largest number of papers, but we've done a half dozen others where one or two papers or a group of 4 or 5 have gone to local owners, often people that own operations very close by, next door, the county next door, 2 counties over. So they're able to come in and leverage their, sales force, their overhead, and absorb that operation under their umbrella, and bring it back to that local ownership, covering, the local government, local sports, with those feet on the ground there.
Sara, everybody who's listening to this, we have a few thousand every week that tune in, want to ask the question you can't answer and Jeremy can't answer, but you both know. What'd you pay, Jeremy? We all want to know. I'm assuming that's just never going to be disclosed. But Sara, there's one of my heroes way back was Warren Buffett, who had a famous quote: "When people are fearful, be greedy. When people are greedy, be fearful." Is this a good time to start looking and picking up some of these titles?
I think it is. I mean, part of what's going on are some of the larger publishers. They're rationalizing these portfolios of papers they have.
Right.
They're looking at their strategies going forward, where their focus is, and that creates opportunities. So for these, with Gannett, they have focused on the small market papers, going back to local owners that can operate that size operation really well. And Jeremy has seen that these small markets, they just have such opportunities. But it's a completely different kind of business than operating a larger newspaper.
Totally. It's Jeremy, in my humble opinion, Jeremy, and you're not paying me for consulting and I'm not charging you. These are vibrant titles. And you are the only game in town. In other words, you're not competing with 4 other news operations and TV. You don't have a bunch of bloggers. You don't have, what you have is a local community with a large appetite for local news. Mm-hmm. And you have to provide that. But Jeremy, no offense, you don't have ink in your veins. You have technology in your veins. Do you follow what I'm saying? So are you relying on any editorial experts to help you? Or is this just something you have a passion for, which is the survival of local journalism?
I would say both. It's a passion, but we're also getting a lot of really talented people coming over with each of these transactions, and that's what we're going to rely upon. I don't want to sit here in New Jersey telling them what to write about what's happening in Newton, Kansas. Right. That's up to them. We're going to be very deferential to them running their own operations there.
What about technology? Please, sir, I mean, I know this is all new. You just picked up these titles, but I went through about 10 of your websites before this interview. They're all looking different. They all have different platforms, different CMSs. Do you see your technology company providing some scale here and bringing everything under one platform?
We do. Our plan currently is we're going to build some pieces of it ourselves in terms of platforms, and then pull together some other best of breed solutions that are out there, because there are a lot of vendors out there in the market. It doesn't make sense to build everything ourselves, but we have the know-how to look at all the different solutions, figure out how to bring them together. I mean, and that's where our 30 years of experience really comes to play, of making systems work together. And so I think that's where we're going to pull together a nice best of breed package that brings all of them on the same platform.
I by no means think that you have to drink the Kool-Aid of this industry right now. If anything, I applaud you, sir, because what I have seen through many interviews of the young, and sir, you are much younger than me. I mean, I can just tell by chatting with you, and you're very, I mean, obviously you have a very successful company, but the challenge today I see is that maybe the older guys like me need to be woken up by new thinking. And whenever I meet young entrepreneurs that have gotten into this industry, they bring a whole new perspective to it. Do you, how should I put this? You do know the challenges today of paying for a newsroom with just subscriber revenue and advertising revenue, correct? You saw that going in, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that did not scare you, sir, when you went into these acquisitions?
It doesn't, because I think there are opportunities for additional technology revenue. And I think about, 100 years ago, the paper printed a paper in the basement and everybody in town came and had things printed there, right? The paper had an alternate source of revenue from printing.
Precisely.
So I think that in the future, and I want to be clear, we are not saying we're not going to print the paper, because that's one of the questions I also get asked. From a digital perspective, there's no reason that the newspaper can't be the digital source of digital solutions for the community, in terms of other online commerce opportunities or even other technology offerings. So I think we recreate the commercial printing aspect from a digital perspective. And the newspaper is the one of the trusted institutions in the community. And I think that it's a mistake not to use the online presence to do more than just deliver the news, which is actually what the bigger players are doing right now anyway. But the smaller communities just don't have the resources to really do that.
Well, again, because possibly the culture. We've always done it this way. My grandpa did it this way. And Sara, I'll bring you in on this. Is there young blood now getting into our industry? And I have to say, finally, are you starting to see that now, Sara?
I think so. Yeah. A lot of the folks that bought some of these other papers in Missouri recently, it's people Jeremy's age in their family businesses where they've got multiple members of the family working at the operation, and that sort of goes along with that new young blood mentality. But there's, and there are a lot of existing families where there are generations, in their 30s and 40s.
Oh yeah, thank God.
Really involved, So I think I'm seeing it across the board, both in the people coming in and the people running, operations day to day that are, third, fourth, fifth generation.
You got Wick, you got Ogden. I can go on and on, where you're really seeing young talent that's bringing that new. Jeremy, you can hum to yourself. Sarah and I are just going to chat about this. No, I think this is one of the most. If I'm seeing jazz, Jeremy, I'm jazzed. Thank you. You're making my day, because I agree with what you did. I see brands. Okay. I mean, Warren Buffett, if I may quote him again, and Mr. Buffett is not an overall hero of our industry today, because he had papers and then he unloaded them. And that was my own comment in my own show. Take it to tweet away if you want. But he used to say, I never bought a company that I always bought smoldering cigar butts I could breathe life into. And every time I do an interview, Jeremy, with people in the industry, I say, are these brands dying or can they get revived? And I think, and I'm going to give myself a little, I did this with E&P. I have a 140-year-old brand here. This magazine goes back to 1880, but we've added vodcasts. We've added a lot of technology. We're very data-driven. Does that make sense, sir? We still print. I love my print product. I call it my legacy print product, but we don't rely on that as it's not our only source of revenue. You, sir, and here I am. I mean, I don't know you that well. You're bringing a whole new perspective to some incredible markets. And Sara, you agree with me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so refreshing to see because these are businesses, like E&P, Mike, that's, so many, it's been around for so long, and businesses are going to evolve. And we're in that stage, in one of those stages of a huge stage of involvement. So, looking at the revenue model, the delivery model, everything. But the one thing that's constant, and still it's just as necessary today as it was in 1880, is the need to share that local news.
Oh God, yes.
and, what it means to a community, to know what's going on with your local government, know what's going on with the school system, all of that hasn't changed. So
Jeremy, were you aware?
How to deliver it.
I mean, Jeremy, you seem like you wouldn't have achieved your success in the technology side unless you do your due diligence. You are aware that research shows that through COVID, there has been a stronger appetite for local content, correct? That it might be, I'm not saying COVID's I'm not, but crisis has always accelerated change. We know that in our history as a society. This accelerated a change where people are going, the cable news sphere is just driving me crazy. All news is local. And you are providing that through these brands. Do you have an opinion on the future of that? In other words, are you familiar with things like the Local Journalism Sustainability Act that people are trying to throw through Congress to give you tax breaks for all the many now journalists you employ, correct? You are familiar with that.
I am.
You're a technology guy. You're a tech guy through and through. I can tell. Question, do you believe Google and Facebook should be paying you for the content that they exploit with every view and click, sir?
I do.
And you would be behind initiatives that, even though they're throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at the industry right now to help the industry, that's nothing more than a rounding error to the billions and billions they make, correct?
I think it comes back to kind of I'm an economics major. I think it comes back to a fundamental economic situation of whoever owns the content deserves to be paid for providing it. And they are throwing money into the industry, but like most programs like that, who's going to benefit from that? Most of the bigger players and a few small ones, as examples, right? But the average small town newspaper is not going to get any benefit out of that. So I do think that there is something that needs to be done here to get the owners of the content properly compensated, because the owners of the content have the payroll of the journalist and the cost of running the operation that they're absorbing there.
Well, I started in radio as a disc jockey, wasn't very talented, and eventually went into sales and management. But every 6 months, I had to do an audit of every song I played for ASCAP and BMI, because I don't know if you know this, April, the composer still gets compensated for the song, not the artist. The artist, they're all one-hit wonders. Sometimes artists lose money on a hit that's still being played on the radio, but the composer, and we had to write down every song so they could come up with a way. There are still people making money on the songs they wrote. Does that make sense? And I lobbied, when I got into TV, there was retransmission consent. The cable systems had to compensate the broadcasters eventually through Congress. So I don't see a reason why. You're right. If your reporter writes a story, correct, that reporter or the person who paid for that reporter should be compensated. And I guess you're on the same page with me, correct, sir?
Absolutely, yes.
And it's not undoable in today's technology, correct, with blockchain and all that kind of stuff to track every story.
Certainly it could be done.
All right. So now, where are you at on advancing? I have to ask this, and we only have a few minutes left. But I'm just so fascinated by this. How about advancing the delivery system? April brought that up. Are you thinking in terms of getting some of these markets to start thinking more towards video and providing them the platforms to do that?
Yeah, I think it's going to vary by community. Some communities have a big issue in some communities is just pure internet access and quality of internet access. Okay. So you need to have good broadband to be able to really do anything streaming. But where it makes sense, it's definitely something we're going to look to do. We have some editors in our current portfolio that are eager to do some demonstration projects around streaming video. So we're going to be looking to do that. I'm just getting to know the folks coming over from Gannett. I'm sure there'll be all sorts of different ideas in each property about what they'd like to see going forward, and we'll hear that out and we'll figure out what makes sense to do in each location.
I did notice that a lot of the people in the cities you serve now are using your common domain, CherryRoad, for email addresses. Is that correct? Or you're providing the email services for all the markets?
Yes. There's some that are using CherryRoad. There's some that will continue to use the newspaper name. We can do it either way.
Of course. Do you plan, that was going to be my question. That was when I saw these email addresses with CherryRoad inside the contact pages of some of these newspapers, do you plan to expand the CherryRoad brand into these markets? Because that's going to be the digital agency name in these markets?
Potentially, yes. Okay. We certainly want to market CherryRoad technology overall, to the community. So that's going to be part of the brand. But we also want to, keep the 130-year history or whatever it is of the local newspaper brand. And we don't want to make them all cookie cutter. We want them all to keep their own identity.
All right, April, let's bring you back in for this this question, and it's an important one. I'm a Jeremy. I'm just thinking right now it might be a good time to buy. Just darn it. These, maybe we've, how it is. You got to find that bottom. You know what I mean? And values will start to come up. What advice would you give someone who's just listening to this now, thinking, I'm going to go see what's out there, and maybe it's a good time to buy? What advice would you tell them right now?
I would, recommend that they reach out to a company like mine and call us and find out, what's out there, what they're looking for, and just start a conversation because there's all sorts of deals available. There's all sorts of structures available. I think one of the exciting things right now is because the market has changed so much from when I started doing this 15 years ago. Now it's possible for local individuals to buy their hometown paper.
Right.
Prices have rationalized to a point where it's possible for people to enter in and make acquisitions, and it used to be much more difficult to kind of break through. I would just start the conversation and find out what's out there and think about the type of paper that you would want, the location of the paper that you would want. You can hit it from all different angles for targets.
Jeremy, same question to you. If someone wants to be another Jeremy Gulban and start, what advice would you give them before you whip out the checkbook?
I would just say to make sure you understand how much work goes into this. And it's highly rewarding, but I am consistently amazed at the dedication of the people who work in this business and how they don't ever take a vacation. There's no such thing as taking a week off from the newspaper, and you got to be prepared for that. But it's very rewarding. You can really make a difference in a community. And it's just an interesting thing to talk about. When I would talk to people about technology and watch their eyes glaze over, now I talk about the newspaper and everybody perks up. It's an exciting conversation. So I certainly have no regrets about doing it. I would encourage others to do it as long as you understand what you're getting yourself into.
Have you found any mentors in our industry that you're getting advice from, Jeremy?
Not really. I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. But I think this might open the door to some more, networking opportunities. So,
will I be seeing you at some conferences coming up in the future, do you think? Or you?
Yeah, I'm on the fence about going to the America's newspaper one coming up. I know Sara had suggested that, and it's just a matter of, am I going to be able to get out of the current chaos to get there? But if I can, I'll try to.
Well, I will be there, sir, with my bride and my co-publisher, and I'll be honored to buy you a beer if you do happen to come out to Colorado.
All right, I will try my best.
That's great. Sara, you are amazing. Thank you so much for alerting E&P about Jeremy here in this great company. I want to just say bravo to you, sir. We are here. We're going to, and by all means, we would love to track your success. You're obviously going to get a free subscription. I mean,
thank you.
And Sara, again, thank you for your valuable time and your insight when it comes to shepherding along these deals, because this is more than just, isn't that a debate, Sara? We should start having more of this. If this is not buying and selling like a car dealership. This is an institution in each individual town, right? And you gotta match the buyer and the seller properly. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The fit, it needs to be there. It's a cultural thing.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into that consideration, and that carries through from the initial conversations all the way through to when something gets closed. And I think, Jeremy, you had a really good experience working with Gannett. They really enjoy working with you. And what your project was not, 20 papers, and it came together quickly. That was not a small feat.
No.
By any stretch. So it was an amazing thing to get done. And I can't wait to see what happens with those papers going forward. It's exciting.
Jeremy, it sounds like your deal was a lot quicker than mine, and I was just picking up a small B2B publication, and it took 6 months just to get I just want to say, this is just a great story. Jeremy, thank you so much for your investment in our industry. Thank you for, obviously, your investment in time, and we're here to help any way we can. Sara, thanks for your support of the industry as well. Jeremy, if someone wants to email you, or get a hold of you, what is your email address, sir?
So JGULBAN at CherryRoad.com.
That's JGULBAN at CherryRoad.com. Sara, how does someone get a hold of you?
Sara at DirksVanEssen.com. No E.
No E. Everyone stay healthy, stay well, and thanks again.
Thank you very much, Mike.
All right, take care.